Hello, welcome. This is part 12 of 32 of my NFL ranking series, and for this one we have the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings finished last year with 8 wins, and a lot of the issues I think they had personally was with like the head coach. The team and organization wasn't very happy with where the head coach was taking them and all that. So they ended up firing their new head coach, and now going into this year they have a new head coach who is supposed to be more offensive mind oriented. So it's going to be interesting to see the upgrade that turns out for Kirk Cousins in that offense. But when it comes to the Vikings, I think they're going to they might do similar to what they did last year. When it comes to, they're right there and they have a really good team. And especially on offense, they have a pretty good offense. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can maybe take that division now because Aaron Rodgers lost Devontae Adams, but for right now, I basically see that as the Packers division to lose. So basically, right now, the Vikings' competition is the Packers. If they can find a way to maybe beat the Packers, then they can find themselves easily slipping into a playoff spot with the roster they have and with how good they can play. So when it comes to their play, like last year, like I said, they had 8 wins, and they were really close to being being really close to being really, really good. I mean, the biggest issue was against like the good teams, they just couldn't seem to get it done. Like they had a close loss against Cincinnati, close loss against Arizona, another close loss against Cleveland, loss against Baltimore and Dallas. And I mean, they beat the Chargers, which is really good. They split with the Packers, which is pretty impressive. And then they split. What hurt them is splitting with Detroit, and then they swept Chicago. So I mean, they had some really good play last year. It's just they were, for whatever reason it was, they just like couldn't make that next step over to get those wins. Like they would do a good job of keeping the game close and sometimes, but they just couldn't take that step over to win. So they got the new coach who wants to spread them out a little bit more and then add a little bit more passing to the offense. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the offensive-minded coach this year because, like last year, obviously they had the defensive-minded one. And, I mean, you saw what their offense did. But their offense was a lot of runs. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, what that conversion turns into. And, I mean, this team, like, based on their play last year, I mean, they should be able to take the step forward up this year. I mean, they're bringing a lot of the same pieces back on offense. And for defense, they're bringing back a lot of the same pieces as well. It's just they're with small little upgrades here and there. And then overall, they got the new coach, so it's going to be interesting to see like what they can turn around. Usually, looking at their depth chart, like I said, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and then KJ Osborne, Irv Smith, Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison. That's basically their monsters at every position. And I mean, those are some really good names. They have some really, really, especially between Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook. That's a three-headed monster right there on offense who can be really good. And when it comes to Irv Smith, he's going to be at the tight end. He's going to be good for them this year, I believe. And then Kirk Cousins has never been. He does get slandered a lot, but he does have his issues where he gets a little hiccupy in the good games when they really, really matter. But for the most part, he's still a pretty good NFL quarterback. He does well enough to get the job done. And for the most part, I mean, he's been part of the reason for this Vikings success. Because I mean, if you saw the numbers from like last season, he was throwing the ball well, and then they were just, for whatever reason, they just couldn't capitalize. If you look at their defense, they added, like I said, they still have Harrison Smith, Patrick Peterson, Danielle Hunter. They added Darius Smith from Green Bay. I mean, they have a really good defense. They have a really good defense. Like, this is definitely one of the better defenses in the league. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, the whole all around how they do, like, as a team, because they're pretty much bringing back a lot of the core pieces and then they also have like Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks in the middle at linebacker. Like this team, adding Darius Smith to linebacker core is a huge add. And I mean, with this team bringing back a lot of the good core, it's going to be interesting to see if they make this next step forward. I have them winning only 7 to 8 games just solely based off the fact that I don't think they're going to win their division because of Green Bay, but I mean, there's a chance that this team could do something special. Because, looking at the next season, I mean, you see after the first 2 weeks, they have 4 winnable weeks right there where they should get it. And then I basically think, like, the back end of their schedule is going to be where the issue is. I mean, I see this as, like, a 7 to 8 win team. I think they'll win. Oh, I think they could win, like, 3 of their first 5, and then they'll probably, like, they're going to have to find a way to get some wins in the back end. Like, I think Arizona's going to be a tough game. Buffalo, Dallas, New England, Indianapolis. Those are all going to, and then Green Bay again. Like, those are all going to be really tough games for them to win. But, I mean, they have another, like, Commanders will probably be an iffy game just because they're both all right. And, I mean, like, they should beat them. They should beat, like, the 2 New York teams. They should beat the Lions and Bears again. This team has a good chance of, like, they face enough bad teams to where they can get enough wins. It's just going to be more of can they win against these, like, better teams. Because if they can find a way to beat, like, the Green Bays or the Philadelphias or the New Englands or the Dallas or even the Arizonas, even the Indies. Like if they can find ways to beat these teams, then that'll be a good sign for them going into potential playoffs. Because if they beat, all they got to do is beat like two or three of these teams, and they're a playoff team, potentially even looking at winning their division. The NFC is going to be tough this year, so their best ticket to playoffs obviously is winning division. So if they can find a way to beat Green Bay, I mean, honestly, based off where the rest of their schedule is, they have a good chance of taking it. It's just, like I said, they have a new quarterback, or excuse me, they have a new coach with a new scheme, and he's more of an offensive-minded coach. So it's going to be interesting to see if the defense slips up or takes a step back. And then it's going to be interesting to see like what Kirk Cousins can do with the new coach and everything. Like I said, I think this team has the potential to be well. It's just I don't. Every year, like it's the same thing every year where they start out really hot or they play really well, then they just find ways to like lose the big games that matters, and then they end up just average at the end of the season. So like I said, when it comes to the Vikings, I think they're going to be a 7 to 8 win team, probably leaning towards 7, and I think it's just mainly because they won't win as many big games as they need to. If they can find a way to win those big games against those good teams, then that will be really, really good for them and taking that next step forward into the team. But like I said, the issue has been for this Viking team is they still, I wouldn't say they're young anymore because they do have some veteran names, but they just like, when it comes to winning the big games, they almost seem inexperienced because they just can't find ways to do it sometimes. Now that this whole group has another year to come back together, and now it's going to be interesting to see the next step that Justin Jefferson takes. With this whole new offensive scheme and everything they're going to do, it's going to be interesting to see where the Vikings go. It's just going to be more of can they stay out of their own way, and can they keep finding ways to take the next step forward, being a great team, or they're going to have more of what they did last year, just be another team that just gets stuck in the middle of the pack.